Welcome to another edition of the 5-Star Zone. Rico Beard and the Big Ten Network's own Howard Griffith joining us here for another week. And Howard, interesting week.
To say the least.
I got to be honest with you. On my bingo card of life, I heard things that I wasn't ready for, but they are here. We're going to get to the Mel Tucker, Michigan State situation a little bit later on in this. Let's first talk about last weekend and kind of set up what's going to happen in this weekend.
Yeah.
When I look at last weekend, it was it was almost like either if you were a Big Ten team, you played people and you blew them out. Penn State, what Penn State is doing is, I guess, what you're supposed to do against bad teams. You just kind of hand them a check and say, you have no chance. Thanks even think you're going to win. Right. Thanks for coming. Safe travels back. And hopefully everybody is healthy on your side so you guys can go compete the following week. Yeah, I'm looking at Penn State and Howard. I know it's early in the season, but the road for the Big Ten goes through Ann Arbor for the last 2 years, but It looks like more and more that game, November 11th, those a lot. Teams look like the best two teams in the Big Ten. Let me just put it that way. Yeah, I think that's an easy, and I think that's the right assessment right there when you think about Penn State. And listen, I understand their competition, but the reason I like this team so much is what they practice again each and every day. They're going against the ones. They're going against their ones, so they're competing every day. So they've been able to move the football against a really strong defense and have success in practice. So, it flows into the game. Now, this Michigan, that game's going to be exciting now, believe it, because it's two teams that are kind of built differently. I think we've talked about, how Penn State was kind of built to take on, what Ohio State does as far as spreading you out and being able to, cover all those receivers down the field. But I think they've also made some changes in Penn State, and they're a lot better in the trenches on both sides of the ball. So right now, if you're looking, you look at Michigan, you look at Penn State, these two teams have the fewest questions about where they're going. You can pick at them about different things. Sure, you can do that with anyone. But when you start looking at, the way they're playing in all three phases, it's hard to argue that right now these aren't the two best teams in the conference. Yeah, it is. If you're Michigan, I think the nitpick, as you say, is the run game, going up against ECU, going up against UNLV. Blake Corum's yet to break through 100 yards, and Donovan Edwards doesn't look like he's picking up where he left off last season. I don't know if that's just, the level of competition. You're really not going out there doing as hard. You were a former player. I know they always say you give it 100%, but Howard, we all know. Yeah. Sometimes you look at your opponent and realize I could probably give you 60% and save the other 40. Yeah, that's reality. And players understand that. They want to get off to a fast start. They know that if they're playing at the level they're supposed to be, they're going to be out of the game relatively early, and they're going to be able to get a lot of players to play. And for the most part, that's what you've seen with both of these teams. They're playing a lot of players. They're playing getting a lot of good experience. And that's going to pay dividends as the season continues to progress. Hopefully both teams can stay healthy. Hopefully everybody can stay healthy. But when you're able to play so many players early, it's important. And it shows their teammates that they're dialed in and understand what they need to do as far as the game plan is concerned. And shows that they're engaged. Because sometimes you can get in these situations, and if you're a 2 and you're playing behind an All-American or first-team All-Big Ten guy, you're not going to get many reps. But I think what you're seeing both of these teams do is play a lot of players and get those valuable reps that they need. And Howard, it sounds weird because this team's 2-0 and they just beat a team 35-7. But it just seems like there's some concern coming out of Columbus that this team doesn't seem like the Ohio State teams of old. The sad comparison is they're being compared to previous teams in previous years. So whereas, there's probably 10 teams in the Big Ten who would love to be in their shoes. It doesn't feel like, even where Ohio State finished the season last year, a play away from knocking off the back-to-back champion Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on all these teams and all these coaches, but the pressure in Columbus, we know it is about winning national championships. That's what they aspire to do each and every year, and they're not playing at that level right now. And you look at their third down situations, which is a problem on both sides of the ball. What teams are doing, I think what you saw Indiana do was really just play keep away. Try to move the ball, grind it out to force them to, not have as many plays as they normally do. And that's been bared out because some of the things that we've been hearing from Coach Day, he talks about we're not getting as many possessions as we've gotten in previous years. And teams are holding onto the ball. So they have to be that much more efficient on third down to be able to stay in the game because you don't know how many reps you're actually going to get. And that's kind of falling into, they want to get as many players playing as well. But when they're not firing all cylinders, they're forced to keep those starters in. And right now, last week we saw them force the ball to those wide receivers, and that's what they needed to do. But what does that mean for the run game? So we're not seeing necessarily the balance that they want to see on the offensive side. And then you see some, giving up some yardage, obviously on third down has been a problem for them. And they just have more questions. I'm not saying that they're not a good football team, but they just have more questions that need to be answered, not only for themselves, but also their fan base as well.
Yeah, and then I look at some of the other games, and one that really I found curious because I was driving back from MSU, and I had to go back and rewatch it on the BTN at 60.
Uh-huh.
I'm driving, and I'm listening that Charlotte is beating Maryland at Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, I had to call somebody and be like, did Talia Tungavaloa get knocked out the game? Like,
right.
Why is Maryland losing to Charlotte? Now, basically, they came back. I think they won, 38-20?
Yeah.
But Mike Loxley sure likes to make the Maryland fans sweat. What? Howard, what happened?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where, you talk about the competition. They came out. There's a pick six involved in that as well. So they got behind in the score early. But listen, they won the game, and obviously the coaching staff wasn't happy about it. The players weren't happy about it. But the one thing you saw them rally back, and that's what they need to be able to do. And that's not a game that they can afford to lose when you think about having to go against who they have to go against over in the East. So these are games that they have to have. But I thought it showed a lot for them to be able to come back. They could have folded the tents. You didn't want to see them do it, but it's still a good football team. They really are, and they're going to have some growing pains. They got to take care of. But for them to be able to make that next jump that they want to make to get out of that middle of the pack scenario that they're in right now, when you look at the Big Ten, they've got to be able to start strong and finish strong, and that's what you want to see. But that's also the growth you have to see in programs that are trying to establish themselves as solid middle of the road teams, because it's hard, man, when you think about it. I mean, Maryland's happy that the divisions are going away. At least that's what we believe at this particular point, because it's tough if you're Maryland, if you're Rutgers. You can really be playing as hard and as well as you want, but you just don't have the players that those other three programs have. So you can't afford to drop a game.
It almost feels unfair because it's like you look across the street and you're like, well, Wisconsin and Iowa, they don't have to go through all this. They just play each other. Well, it's like, oh, you got Michigan this week, you got Ohio State, you got Penn State. It's just like, that's just not fair. But no, seriously, I'm listening on satellite radio, and I immediately was like, okay,
something's wrong.
This ain't right. Like, did he get knocked out the game or what happened? And, then you look at, on Friday night, Howard, your alma mater, Kansas. I wish I could say it was a raucous crowd, but it wasn't. I still laughed that they had like 12 police guarding the goalposts and there were no fans there.
Yeah, it's
fans, but for Illinois and Bielema, why the struggles this year?
Yeah, I think there are a couple things, right? You obviously lost a great deal of talent that went on to the NFL. There's a shakeup on your coaching staff with Ryan Walters going over to Purdue and taking some coaches with him. So Aaron Henry steps into the defensive coordinator position, and I'm not saying that Aaron not good. He's not a good defensive coordinator, but he's young, right? He's learning. This is his first shot at being able to call the defenses. So you're going to go through some things, and that's one of the things that happens, and it's tough when you're going against this Kansas team. Remember, they got off to a fast start last year, and the quarterback got hurt, and things kind of tailed off. You saw again why they got off to a fast start last year, because you're seeing it now. That quarterback is dynamic, and he's going to put these defenders in conflict where they're not going to be able to be right, and he needs to make the right calls, and he's doing it. But I think it's just one of those things where things have to settle down for this team. Because I thought they had or have one of the best offense and defensive lines. They talk about experience, talking about Illinois. I mean, they're one of the best out there, but they have not played anywhere near that level. And they've got to get the run game going, and they've got to be able to stop the run and be able to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, and now, speaking of quarterback, getting to Michigan State, Noah Kim wins the Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah.
Didn't take him as long to get settled in. It looks like they may have found a QB in him. The thing I like about Noah Kim is, you look at, they play Richmond, an FCS school, but the fact that, man, he hit, I think, 9 different receivers, where I think with Peyton Thorne, it was really 2 receivers he saw. And everybody else could be standing there waving their arms, but he was still like, but Jaden Reed only has 3 people around him.
Yeah.
Noah Kim is kind of finding the open man, which I think is necessary when you're a team like Michigan State. You don't have the dynamic, NFL first round selection.
Yeah.
Kim goes out there, does his thing. Nate Carter runs for 3 touchdowns. I think he's up there with the Big Ten leaders in rushing.
Yep.
And it looks like, okay, you got Washington coming in, and, Michael Penix Jr. has been the Spartan killer ever since Illinois. I mean, he just gives them fits.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest concern when I left Spartan Stadium. I go back home, I'm rewatching the game, and then all of a sudden, Howard, the news starts coming out.
Yeah.
And this article, and it's this article. And then the USA Today details this relationship Mel Tucker had with Brenda Tracy. The next day, the school has to step up, and they say basically they were going to keep this thing quiet because they couldn't because of Title IX, but because Brenda put her name out there, well, we can now act forward. They suspend Mel Tucker without pay the next day. The hearing is coming up during the bye week. I mean, Howard, there's so many different ways to go with this, but I guess one, I mean, we kind of text because it was like I had a whole list of people, and I could tell when everybody was waking up, and I was like, "Oh, Howard just woke up. Howard just saw the news." What was your initial reaction when you heard this?
Really shocked, right? And that's what is the first article I read was the ESPN article, and you're like, okay, well, it'll play itself out. Obviously disappointed, and then you say, well, get another text, it's the USA Today, and I was like, oh, wait a minute,
right?
Whoa. And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that it got to this point, but we're gonna find out, in October 5th and 6th, just what the ultimate decision is going to be. I think everyone kind of knows and has an idea of where the program is headed right now. As far as Coach Tucker's concerned, it's probably moving forward without him, but we'll learn more probably that day, because people are going to have the information at that point. I think everyone will be able to have it. I think it's unfortunate that it was leaked, whoever leaked it. And it's not whether you're apologizing for Tucker or you're Brenda Tracy. It doesn't matter which side you fall on. The fact that, this got out is a problem. And, hopefully Michigan State gets to the bottom of that and finds out, who was involved there. Yeah,
because I always laugh, man. Michigan State has, since I've been a student, has always had problems like this. Now, it does, in all fairness to the new Board of Trustees, they appear to be cleaning it up.
Yeah.
They've gotten rid of a lot of old figureheads, people who've just been around based off of their name. It's a lot more. It's newer people on there, but it still shows me that that there's still at least one person that's like the old guard, and I really hope that they find out where it came from. Because until they do, Howard, I'm sure you're gonna get this, and some of the listeners, and if you don't, you just need to Google or watch the movie Life. Until then, they just seem like can't get right.
Yeah, it's
every time it's just like, no, don't do this, no, don't go here, no, don't do this, and it's just, you gotta start doing, because each and every time you do something, this just builds on to Larry Nassar and everything else. It's just like, you don't want people to just think that, you know what, I'm just expecting you to do something wrong. I don't expect you to ever do something right. But saying that, I'm going to ask you, because I think that for the information that they had, Howard, it appeared that this time MSU actually did the right thing. For what they knew, for the situation they were in, I think you had no other recourse but to suspend Tucker.
Yeah, I think they follow their letter of law. What they needed to do is, as far as protecting the people that were around, and then they were forced to make a decision. As it appears, Brenda Tracy was forced to make her comments and release what she needed to, and Mel Tucker then had to release his statement. So. Right. Everybody has had to be to react to a situation that they thought that maybe they would at least have until October 5th or 6th before things got out. But I think Michigan State, they did exactly what they needed to do, because I think in this situation, if Coach Tucker is still in place, your student athletes who you're saying you're looking out for and are forced to answer these questions each and every day. And the focus will not be on, the football team. It's going to be on Coach Tucker and Brenda Tracy. And right now, since both of them, obviously Brenda Tracy is not around, but Coach Tucker is not around either, it kind of allows the team and the university to kind of focus on what they need to, the university on the hearing that's going to be coming up and what they need to do there, and the student athletes being able to focus, hopefully, as much as they can on this Washington team that they're going to have their hands full with coming up.
It's funny because I do want to talk about that. I'm thinking to myself, there's 20 billion women in the world.
Yeah.
You picked her.
Yeah. Listen, man, you fall for who you fall for. Right?
I know.
You fall for who you fall for. But I think the question is, it's a judgment. Right. Yeah. I think that's what most people are looking at. They're looking at it from, okay, well, you got to make better decisions.
Here's the thing. I mean, and even Tucker comes out and says in his statement that he said a lot of stuff, but one of the people was out for me because of my job. I mean, how much money I'm making. And I'm thinking to myself, no bleep, Mel. Yeah. If like you and I, if we know that our job's on the line, Howard, you don't show up late every day because you're just giving them something to fire you with. That's where I'm like, your judgment, Mel, that some people weren't happy with your contract. That was always going to be a sticking point. And you just handed them the keys and said, here, please get rid of me. And that's what it looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. And maybe once we get beyond October 6th, we'll get more information and understand. I mean, I think most people have made their decision of what they know, just on what they know. So more things will come out, I'm sure, at the hearing. That there'll be more stuff that'll be discussed and thrown around. But at the end of the day, it still comes back to the judgment. And I think that's the unfortunate part, that the judgment that you made really cost you, a head coaching spot at a really desirable place that has the resources, and it's just a tough situation all the way around for everyone.
I mean, new practice facility. I mean, they're spending $30 million. It's being built as we speak. It'll be done next season. The next coach is, literally walking into a brand new mansion that I mean, if you want to repaint some of the walls and do whatever and make it yours, that's fine. But other than that, yeah, you're about to walk into a pretty situation. Saying that, Michigan State tapped Harlan Barnett, former Spartan player, current coach in the secondary. He's the interim coach.
Yep.
What did it mean for the players say, why Harlan Barnett? Why was he the guy and not anybody else?
Well, I think you look around, Harlan, and I think you have to look at the athletic director as well and his ties and where his comfort level, where his comfort level is. And there's a comfort with having, Harlan there because you know what he means to, the people in that locker room. And it's important. I mean, he's a stand-up guy, always has been, known him for going back to playing days. So for me, it gives him an opportunity to kind of, stabilize things, in that building, right? And, he's a guy that the players are going to listen to. He's a guy that the players should rally for and moving forward. But this is not going to be an easy position. And I think that's one of the reasons, in putting Harlan in that position, having Coach D'Antonio come back and also kind of guide him through this process because he's still a first-time head coach. And there's some things that come across your desk on a daily basis that have nothing to do with what's going on between those white lines. So he's got to try to get up to speed with that. And this is really, and we're talking about week 3. So there's a lot of football that needs to be played. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be happen in the back office, whether it's recruiting, whether it's campus, all of that stuff is still going to come at Michigan State, regardless of who's the head coach. But I think it gives them a stabilizing force that's well respected within the Michigan State community, and I think he's well respected, outside of that community as well. When you talk about the recruiting process too.
Yeah, and it's funny as you say, bringing in Mark D'Antonio. It's like he's bringing his own wartime consigliere, somebody who can help him make it through. And as you say, you can lean on him.
Yeah.
And I really don't know what Coach D's job is going to be, but, I do think that he is going to help in the stabilizing factor of getting this. And then when you look at what Harlan's going to do, I mean, what would he have to do to keep this job? Because we talked about it on the radio, and I said that, you know what, you probably 2 games are gone, so you're going to get 10 more games. I'm like, if you go 7-3, I think you put yourself in serious consideration because that means you knocked off all the 50-50 games, and you also beat one of those 4 teams that people didn't think that you could beat, whether it was Washington, Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. I'm like, if Harlan does that, I think that he's now moved on to, if you don't give him the job, he's on that short list of people that you're heavily considering for the job.
And he also becomes a on the list of other programs as well.
You know what? I didn't think about that.
So yeah, at the end of the day, he's got to win. He's got to win because I think when you sit back and you look at where Michigan State is right now, this is going to be a highly coveted job. Movement. I mean, it really is. This is a, people can say what they want. This is a big time job when you look at the resources that are going in to this place that you've already talked about. When you look at, you
look at the buildings, you look at how much money they gave to Tucker saying, hey, we willing to spend. If we think you're the right guy, we're not going cheap anymore.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it. So when you look around, it's going to come down to, what they believe is going to put these student athletes and give them an opportunity to compete. And I know, they're putting lists together. People are throwing names out there, and it really depends. Do you want a defensive guru or do you want an offensive guru that can go hire that defensive guru or the other way around? So, Harlan's got to win. That's number one. He's got to win. Otherwise, you're forced. You're not forced, but you have to go look at everyone that's available. You have to make the calls. You have to do your due diligence as an athletic department to find the right person that you're going to need to go lead your program. But Harlan has first shot at it. right? Because he's got this audition. He's got the rest of the season to be able to do it. And so he's got a great opportunity with Coach D'Antonio over his shoulder. And, he's going to be as involved as he possibly can with getting prepared, getting this team prepared. And also think about this, one of the things they talk about with defensive coaches, and it's part of the process, their growing process, is game management, because that's not something that defensive coaches have to necessarily be worried about on a play-in, play-out basis. You learn that. You're forced to learn that on the job. And so having, someone that's been in that position is going to be important. I think can be a big role and a big plus for Harlan.
And that is true. And when you look at this game coming up with Washington, I mean, I'm gonna lean on this for you because you were a former player.
Yeah.
Is it too much to say that this game can kind of dictate how this goes? If you can come back and you can rally and you beat them, or you play a competitive game, you start feeling like, what, guys, all is not lost. But if this goes sideways, I wonder, how do you come back and rally the troops? If it just – because unfortunately, you're not playing Richmond this week, which would be a perfect type of game to kind of, show that, hey, it's not over. You're coming up against a team that you're double-digit underdogs at home against. You got the Rose Bowl team coming in for the reunion. All eyes are going to be watching. How do you react to this? I guess, is this a good thing that you're playing Washington, because it really gives you a chance to make a statement this year, for the rest of the season?
Well, I think no matter who was the head coach, if Coach Tucker was still the head coach at this point, right, which I guess technically he is.
Yeah.
This was still going to be that kind of a game. This was going to be a game that was going to be pivotal about where this season was going and where the program is right now. Because as well as Washington is playing, I mean, they are, flying around. Penix is, looks like he's on his way to being a first-round draft pick and going to be in the middle of the Heisman race as well. So, they've got players, and they've done a really good job of stockpiling players and playing at a high level. So this game was going to be a challenge no matter who was wearing the whistle.
Right.
And, so. But when you think about what Harlan is going through, Coach Barnett is going through at this point, it's an opportunity for him to rally these guys. And, I think the team is going to rally around him, but they still have to be able to go out and execute. And that's that becomes really where the focus is. Everyone's going to be concerned about what's going on, but I can tell you Washington don't give two hoots, right?
No, they don't.
Washington doesn't care. They're focused. They're like, whatever, we got to come in. We got a game to play. We think we're really good.
Yeah, they lead college football in plays over 30 yards.
Yeah,
so, they're trying to score quickly and they're trying to score fast. I guess, like I said, for me, if you're Michigan State, you kind of got to lean on Nate Carter.
Yeah,
and just grind this thing out and make sure that. Because the best way to beat Penix is to keep him on the sideline.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You gotta, and listen. We're starting to see, if you want to beat these teams that are putting up points and have explosive plays, you got to grind. You got to slow the game down. Right. You really do, and you can't afford to turn it over. And you have to win in special teams. You have to be able to flip the field to slow this team down. There are going to be a lot of keys. Third down is obviously going to be a big one. Third down and first down, because when you think about from a defensive standpoint, if they go first, it's 1st and 10, and all of a sudden now it's 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, that's not a great place to be in when you have an explosive offense. So what happens on first down dictate a lot about how this team is going to ultimately perform.
Let me give you some advice, man, because I know you and DiNardo, you do your the picks, like I forgot what you call them, but when you really go overboard. Michigan State, but with Mark D'Antonio coming back, 2 trick plays. Not one.
Give him 2? Okay.
2 trick plays.
You know what? So we go with this bold prediction.
That's what it is, bold prediction. Yeah.
Which is about ridiculous as I can say they are. We come up with some stuff. But I'm going to go with that this week. I'm going to go exactly there. 2 trick plays. I'm going to text my producer now and tell him this is where I'm going.
Yeah, not one, but two. I expect, a fake field goal, a fake punt, some type of razzle-dazzle Statue of Liberty type of thing. And then the camera will cut over to D'Antonio and Harlan Barnett, and he'll just had a little smile on his face like,
right.
Y'all know me. This is what I do.
So right. The chip on the shoulder's back.
Right. So
the chip's back.
Right. So we will see. Yeah. I mean, I look at this. It's like I said, it's a weird game. It's a 5:00 game, so not necessarily a night game, but you got the Rose Bowl alums coming back, and I mean, this is really one of those where I think a lot of people were shocked.
Yeah.
And this it may be advantageous where Washington may be walking into a situation where they don't care, but you now have a team that's super focused.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of because I got a feeling that the players probably are turning their phones off all week because people just keep contacting them.
Yeah.
Heck, I know how much people contacted me, so I can only imagine what the players are getting. They're just like, you know what, guys, let's just take all of this energy and put it on Washington. It's going to be interesting. They're 16-point underdogs. Right about now, I'm thinking they got a shot at this, man.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. They do. There are a lot of things that are going on outside that'll bring them together. You mentioned the Rose Bowl team coming back, and they're going to be. You talk about your phone. I can only imagine with Harlan Barnett's phone, with all of the support that guys are calling and input, and I think it'll be huge. And he is as well respected as any alum that's left Michigan State and gone into the coaching profession. He's going to rally the troops, and they're going to do everything they can. But at the end of the day, all that energy that you have, all that focus that you have, you gotta play to your keys and play to your strengths, and not turn it over, man. And that's what it's going to come down to, them being able to make the plays when they need to.
That, and here's another stat for you. Penix, in the games that he started, the first true road game that he's played in that he starts, he's 1-3. The one game that he did win was at Rutgers. But other than that, like even last year, he went on the road to, I think, UCLA. They lost that game. So just something else that you can show Donardo how smart you are.
I appreciate all the tidbits.
All right,
I need them.
Howard, appreciate your time, man. We'll be back next week. We'll see what happens with Michigan State. Hopefully, we'll only be talking on the field stuff and no more off the field drama. This week, the list of games really
what it is.
Yeah, right. The team should be winning.
Yeah.
But it's next week is when all of a sudden you start seeing a little bit of separation. Ohio State's going to be taking on Notre Dame. I think that's going to be the big game. So
that's going to be a huge game.
We're going to find out a lot about the Buckeyes in that game, whether we were all just kind of worried for nothing or we were worried for a reason. So we're going to figure that out. Howard, appreciate your time. Howard Griffith, you can see him on the Big Ten Network. You can see him during the day, on Saturdays. That's the man. Make sure you're watching him. For Howard, this is Rico Beer. Keep liking, subscribing, and watching the 5 Star Zone. We'll be back next week.